You guys may have heard me talk about this truck before. It's very special to me. It's at an abandoned junkyard really close to my house in Florida. The area that this truck probably spent most of its time was in Florida and the surrounding states. But the owner of this truck, the guy who took it town to town and did all those things with it, is far more fascinating than the truck. And that's hard to believe. I'm about to tell you about the human cannonball from Florida. The 20s were really different from today. 100 years ago, you could buy a chassis and an engine and a transmission and put your own body on it. Now this really came in handy when it came to like travel trailers or specific types of trucks, flatbeds and things like that. And that's why it made a whole lot of sense for the human cannonball of Gibsonton, Florida, to have this particular truck made. Back in the 1920s, fairs and expositions and circuses and carnivals were still very big draws, especially in the smaller towns across America. And some of the main things that happened, people showed up with tigers and elephants and all kinds of crazy animals. But the one thing people always remembered was the human cannonball. There was some specialized equipment involved in such a thing. You're obviously going to need a really big cannon. It's preferable to be small. And when you see the driver compartment in this truck, you'll understand that this guy definitely was. Now let's go inside and see exactly what it was like to not only drive this thing town to town, but live in it in the 1920s. Now keep in mind, it would be another 20 years before World War II would start. All of the screw heads are either flathead or, in a lot of cases here, rows and rows of rivets. The tin's still in good shape on the outside. And you'll notice also there's a crank mechanism affixed to each window that made it so when you're inside, you can open it up to probably a good 90 degrees from its current position. This is where we want to go, right? This is the first time we've walked inside this truck. Perhaps the first time anybody's walked in it in decades and decades. Fuel tank. Almost rusted away steps. But now let's go in. Everything very fragile here. The wall between the driver compartment and here opens with a very small latch here, and you're allowed access to that front. Floorboards rotting away. Up against the wall here, I'm gonna have to put some light on this so you guys can appreciate this. Just beautiful. Made into the wall. Over here, a flat surface, another fallen flat surface. Don't know if it's shelving or if it was meant to be something else, but I had some people ask me about the inside of this. So this is what it looks like. Several hooks up on the front there for clothing or chains or something to hold down things that are being hauled. I had some people say, you should open up those drawers. There's not a bottom one in that one, so let's come to the next one. Nothing. I'm assuming there's probably nothing in any of them, but oh wow. Medicine cabinet? Perhaps had a mirror on there? We get back to the divider here. You can see a really old outlet. Several insects setting up housekeeping over the years. Now look at this divider door. And one of my favorite aspects right here. These are metal. And that's a bed. A really small bed. To give you some idea how high up this is, there's my arm touching the bottom, and there's the top, so you probably have 1.5 feet between the top and the bottom. A light assembly? Yeah, really old light assembly. That had to be put in later. Let's go into the back. Walking through now. This is the first time I've been in here as well, so it's a bit crazy to be walking through here. I don't know what to expect here at all. Even the things like that coat hanger, it's a smaller size than we use today. I know it might be hard to tell in the video, but it's physically smaller. Another bunk bed. So room for two to sleep in here. All the while being very careful where I'm walking here because these floors are just smoked. But the back door, little lock at the bottom, very, very thin. I mean, this is glorified cardboard that door's made of. Another lock at the top. Used to be some sort of light or something up there, but let's come down over here. Look at the lock assembly on that. I think that's probably in the truest sense an ice box. Probably not powered. But look at that. What's that setup? Some of you guys know about that? There's a little sink. Oh, that is cool. Probably that board comes off there. But there's some kind of little cup there, which is not powered. So did that hold a candle? Boy, that's fascinating. Wow. See if I can get back there. Some old shoes with wooden soles that are obviously a lot newer, but little shelf there. A retrofitted power plug over in the corner. A rod for curtains. Once again, I told you that little crank outside, you spin it and it makes the window open. There's where the mechanism would go. This is a fascinating thing. That's a newer lock assembly there. We're going to see inside there in a moment. That's beautiful too. Now, as I told you in the beginning, what in the heck is that? There's a motor there under that. Anyway, like I told you, a human cannonball who went from city to city, state to state, used to basically live in this thing. This was, he slept in it. Let's get this out of the way, get this out of the way. I have a feeling there's a sink under here that's going to be really cool. Here we go. Wow. You think about it, this guy was probably going town to town. In the 20s, the 30s. Now see, I think I'm right. That thing right there is what you put the ice in. And that keeps the whole thing cool. But look at that little... Wow. Alright, let's come around here. Looks as if that's just basically a shelf or maybe a seat. It's hard to say because it has this little ridge around the edges. And that ridge may be for some kind of cushion to go in there or to hold things in. Once again, you come up here. Notice the hinge assembly there? That's so this entire bed can fold upward against the roof there, and then see the big hook? Holds it up out of the way. I am betting, I'm thinking that somehow with this hinge assembly, that it was set up where the cannon could go here. Now keep in mind the driver's a very small guy. I'll show you how small here in a moment, but wheel well right there. All right. Look at that breaker. Wow. Another wheel well down there. Looks like something's been chomping on paper up in there. It's so cool to see how these old locks and hasps are made. All right, let's go back to the front. Now, throughout this video so far, I've been telling you about how little the driver had to be to drive this. This has not been opened, and I still don't think it's going to come over. Let me step outside real quick here. Now, I was telling you how small this driver is, and I may or may not be able to show you that by lifting this and pulling back. As you see, it's kind of, it has to come forward, and then that comes, that won't lift. Anyway, we're going to come around there, pull this back too. Show you this. The driver, at one point in time, I thought had to be an extremely small guy. First of all, he does have to be a small guy to be a human cannonball, to fit inside that cannon itself. But it just occurred to me that this entire door, the entire wall here, folds on itself and folds back into the rear compartment. So that's something I didn't know before. So maybe this guy didn't have to be as small as I thought he was. He did, however, have to be able to fit roughly into this spot. Come over here and see if I can move the seat. Human cannonballs were really big all the way 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and stuff, but as time went on, like much of anything else, like the circus itself, it passed. Now, a lot of these things, you guys may not know this or not, but the earlier vehicles had a lot of their controls when it came to timing and throttle position right here on the steering wheel. If you look at a Model T or a Model A, it's reminiscent of that. Actually, this kind of represents an interesting time in vehicles because the Model T by Ford was made before the Model A. That would have been 03 to 27. One of the problems at that time is that no two car manufacturers built their cars the same way. So you never knew which did the gas, which made the horn honk, which made the clutch work, how you put it into gear. And that's why the Model A that debuted in 28 was such a big success for Ford, because they decided to do things in a very predictable way, and everybody else did too at the same time. So you could get in a Hudson, you could get in a Dodge Brothers, Plymouth, Chevy, Ford, whatever, and you could get in the car and the clutch was all in the same place on all the different manufacturers. And it all started in the late 20s, and the gas pedal and the brakes and all that. And it made it so it was just a little more universal and you could drive the darn thing. Anyway, that it is right there. I'm wondering what that little bracket is on the top. Did that hold something? Did it have some kind of sign on it? Human Cannonball! It's bound to have been a fascinating time. Can you imagine just being this guy? He was the Evel Knievel of his time. He'd just come into another town and honestly take a chance on if he was going to die there. What a crazy existence. And what a cool old truck. This junkyard is going away bit by bit. And as you saw in several of the older videos, the abandoned junkyard Tampa, there's a phone number in there to contact Don, who owns the junkyard. But you'll see back there, there's a beautiful old fire truck and several more. But it's all going away, and these are the last moments of it. So I wanted to document this. And it's kind of sad to see things like this go, but I hope you enjoyed this. The story of the human cannonball from the 1920s. Thanks for watching, guys.